My name is Dr. Wilson-King. I'm a board-certified OBGYN and a cannabis educator.
Tell us how you got involved in this industry and why you became a cannabis educator.
I attended the very first workshop that Cannabis Career Institute, CCI, had in Florida. It was in Miami, Florida, February 1st, 2014. And I met and talked with Bob Calkin, who was the owner, founder, and at the end of the conference, I said to him, it was a good conference, but one of the things I did not hear was, it was all, well, first of all, it was all about cannabis and cannabis businesses, and then how you grow it, et cetera, et cetera. I said, but no one talked about cannabis and its medical uses and benefits. And he said, well, why don't you do that for the next conference? Not expecting that kind of response, but that's Bob. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I prepared a presentation to tell people about cannabis. And since then, most of his workshops in Florida have had CMEs in cannabis, and I'm a member of the Society for Cannabis Clinicians, the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine, and the International Cannabinoid Research Society, 3 different groups, and get sent a lot of the latest scientific research about cannabis, and get to watch many webinars, some done by Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, who is the grandfather of cannabis research, the one that started it all, and I've done a great deal of learning over the past several years, actually. I am a board-certified OBGYN. I don't practice a conventional OBGYN practice. My practice phased into functional medicine. A functional medicine practice in which I mainly do, it's preventive medicine. I mainly actually do bioidentical hormones, nutritional assessments and counseling, assessments of biological age versus chronological age, and immune testing, telomere testing, things like that. Put everything together and then establish an individualized, customized health program for my patients. And in doing my research I'm always reading about things that deal with aging or the chronic diseases associated with aging and whatnot. Of course, I came across some information on cannabis, and this was several years ago. And I've been reading that information ever since.
Wow.
So that's what got me into the research part of it. And then the clinical part, the clinical educator, developed last year.
Got it. Awesome. And I'm wondering, I'm going to ask you kind of slightly different questions from the typical entrepreneur questions, because I think being a doctor, it's a little different. I guess I'm wondering, it sounds like you're very proactive in learning about cannabis as medicine. And I know that most medical schools in the U.S., or maybe all of them even, don't teach the endocannabinoid system, and they don't really get into cannabis medicine. So I'm wondering, what advice do you have for doctors who are looking to learn more about, or even patients who are looking to have the conversation with their doctors, or how do people get better educated on medical cannabis?
Okay, for most people, and this will include doctors as well as patients, if you go to PubMed.com and any of the other medical research engines, you'll what you can do in the search box is put cannabis and or marijuana and or cannabinoids and then whatever disease you're looking to find out about in the search, and then that will pull up every article that addresses what you're searching.
Oh, wow.
So that's a good place to start. For physicians in particular, certainly joining the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine, and ICRS, which is the International Cannabis Research Society. Joining any one of those, you'll be able to have access to research articles and other physicians who have been involved in cannabis medicine. Two of those programs, the AACM, American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine, and SCC, Society of Cannabis Clinicians, were started by California physicians and are very, very good. They've been dealing with this since the 90s, the late 90s. 96 is actually when California passed their initial bill that allowed the medical use of cannabis. So you'll find a lot of information, be able to talk with them, and that's a great area in which to start. And there are more and more CME conferences on cannabis. You'll see that probably more this year. There was one big one last year for patients and mainly for physicians, that gave you CME, continuing medical education credits. Patients Out of Time conferences have been going on for years. It's a great place for patients and physicians and whoever else to go and learn about cannabis. They have a lot of really good speakers, and those are good places to start.
Awesome, awesome. I guess it seems like you're pretty familiar with, the different medical programs in different states. I'm wondering if there's a model that you particularly like or a model you particularly are uncomfortable with, or, kind of what's your view of how the medical systems are being set up in America?
There isn't any one program that I like above all the others. I like each of them for various reasons. One, I like New Mexico because even though it limits the diseases or conditions in which you can be a candidate for the use of cannabis, it has a board composed of physicians through which you can submit a request to add a disease or condition, and then the board reviews it and reviews whatever literature you provide supporting it and decides yay or nay whether we can add it. A lot of states that are doing this, they limit, many of the other states I should say, limit the conditions, and then you essentially have to go through an act of Congress, state Congress, to get another disease or condition added because they're doing it through laws going through Congress. And that, I think, makes it very difficult and cumbersome. They're not allowing doctors. California is the only state in which doctors can decide, it's between the physician and the patient as to yes or no on using medical cannabis. And that's the way it should be. This limiting by lawmakers is cumbersome. It sometimes lacks some full understanding of cannabis and how it works. Sometimes it's even made without the lawmakers even being aware that there is an endocannabinoid system and how pervasive it is in our bodies and how addressing those deficiencies can really help a lot of diseases and conditions. So that's one area I like in California where physicians are free to address whatever they wish to address with cannabis. I do understand some of if you're going to have limitations, then have a smoother and more efficient process to add conditions to the list so that patients don't have to unnecessarily suffer.
Right.
I do like, you have to look at, do they do a vertical program in which one owner owns the grow, the processing, and the dispensing, or do you have a horizontal setup in which various people can specialize in various areas and more people can participate and become economically enhanced and help many people? I like the horizontal approach as opposed to the vertical. Vertical is too limiting
Yeah.
in the community and the economics of the area. That's another area I find very interesting and people should look at.
Right. Yeah, New York is going to be vertically integrated, and they're basically giving out 5 licenses, and that's supposed to cover the entire state. So it'll be really interesting to see how that rolls out, and who actually gets to participate in the industry here legally.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's too much limitation with that. And I think you keep the economical gains and the medicinal value in the hands of too few people. It may be from the fear people have about cannabis.
Yeah.
But, how I address that is saying, okay, if this were your child or if this were you, and no, would you rather give your child something natural, something that is not toxic, is not synthetic, yet it still helps or cures the problem? Or would you rather go the other route? I mean, let's really truly look at it. This is not something that affects somebody else. This could very easily be a position that you could find yourself in. And how are you going to handle it? It's just not, it's people with narrow spectrums that make too much of a deal out of cannabis. Now, one of the things that I find a little annoying is when people say it's a gateway drug.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's not. That's been disproven for years. There's 17, 18 million Americans that have used cannabis. There may be about 500,000 heroin addicts.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a gateway, we should have way more heroin addicts. We should have way more cocaine addicts than we have. If you start off with 18 million, then you should have 25 and 30 million of the other groups of people, and you just don't. If anything, alcohol is more the gateway. Because most people that have used cannabis, that have used heroin, cocaine, probably started out with alcohol. But there are going to be most people that try cannabis stay with cannabis.
Yeah.
And don't go seeking other things. You do have your experimenters. I mean, I'm not going to say that when you use cannabis, you're not going to use anything else. There are people who want to try other things, but having medical cannabis available is not, or available legally or not, is not going to stop the problem.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm glad you shared that. I'm wondering, what else do you wish people who are outside of cannabis culture, who don't really have any background or education on cannabis, what do you wish they knew about this plant?
Oh my goodness. First of all, plants are the foundation of medicine as we know it. The medicine men or the healers, back in hundreds of years ago, used plants. And if someone had, for example, swollen ankles, usually it's an adult with swollen ankles, they give them what they call dropsy tea. And dropseed tea was made from the digitalis flower. And that's what pharmaceutical companies use to make the digitalis or digoxin that they put people on with congestive heart failure.
Hmm.
Plants are the foundation of medicine. Cannabis is a plant. None of us put the plant here. A higher power put the plant here, and it is very medicinal. The fact that we have an endocannabinoid system that makes at least two of the substances we know it makes are bioidentical to two of the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. It's a natural fit for our body. Now we took hemp out of our diet back in the 30s, and hemp has a lot of cannabinoids in it. It doesn't have THC though, very, very minimal amounts of THC, almost negligible.
Mm-hmm.
We used hemp to make paper, to make ships, to make houses. We had used the hemp oil for cooking and eating, good supply of fat and protein. We used hemp for a lot of things up until that point. Then when it was taken away, as the years have gone by, and we're talking 70, 80, 90 years, we find a lot of diseases today that weren't around before. Certainly we're living longer than we did back then, but we do have more diseases and conditions to address. Is that because we took hemp out of our diet? Is that part of the problem? I don't know, but the endocannabinoid system is pervasive throughout the body. It helps control sleep, eating, memory, protection it provides, and balance. The endocannabinoid system is very, very important for balance in the body. Mm. So when we're not addressing that, the endocannabinoid system can have deficiencies. Some disease processes interfere with the endocannabinoid function. It just makes sense that you have phytocannabinoids to treat that are very similar to the cannabinoids made within the body, which are endocannabinoids. So you can use it as a supplement to your endocannabinoid system to help you feel better. I'd like people to understand the endocannabinoid system primarily in answering your question. Right. To finally answer your question, I'd love for them to know about the endocannabinoid system. Yeah. Awesome. And how important it is for us and how the phytocannabinoids interact with it. That's the main thing. If they see it as a science and have an understanding, then maybe they can actually view it as a medicine, the medicine it is.
Right. I'm glad you brought up hemp and hemp nutrition. It's something that I've only recently started learning about myself, but when I did, it completely blew my mind that, this plant that we can grow anywhere, every family can be growing their own supply of hemp, and it's just rich with protein and all these essential fatty acids and Absolutely. All of these minerals that you don't really get from other plants, and the fact that we're not feeding ourselves and our animals that we end up eating with this natural, economical, just powerful nutrition source is criminal in my opinion.
Yes, it is. It really is. There's Lester Greenspoon wrote a book about I think it's entitled Marijuana, the Forbidden Medicine. Mm-hmm. It was printed in the late 90s, and essentially it's a collection of patient stories and how cannabis helped them. Mm. There's a story about an 87-year-old man who grew up on hemp and has hemp tea or hemp seeds or hemp oil, eats hemp every day. Now, I don't know where he's getting it from, but he's eating hemp every day. And he is totally healthy, on no medication, gets around well. He has 6 siblings, They're all on no medications. They all eat hemp, drink hemp tea, and have been ever since they were kids. Now, their health may not be due to hemp totally, but I'm sure hemp plays a role in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. What's something that excites you about, uh, the cannabis movement and where it's heading?
Oh my goodness. One of the One of the biggest problems I see with my patients is many of them come to me as the result of polypharmacy. They're on 5 or more medications, and it would be wonderful to have people on very few, 0 to 2 medications at most. That I find. Now, I know the pharmaceutical industry would not want that at all, but I do find that people are healthier the less medications they're on. Of course, the foundation of health is nutrition and exercise. You can't get around not doing any of those, unfortunately, but you just can't. So you have to be careful what you eat real food. You have to make sure you do exercise, but the right supplements and the right formula would be cannabis for a lot of things. It can get rid of a lot of the pharmaceuticals. Outside of the fact that it's going to help so many people who either have been inadequately helped through conventional medicine, or they've exhausted conventional medicine, what conventional medicine can do. They actually can help, and maybe can be helped by cannabis, and maybe have a quality-filled life. Aside from the medicinal atmosphere and the medicinal benefits we're going to see from it, I think a lot of people will create a new middle class. The economic impact of cannabis is huge. You can get people paid living wages finally, and they're in a field in which they're very happy to be in,
Right.
and you've got jobs, you've got economic impact, you've got people in a more pleasant state, and you've got many patients who are going to benefit from cannabis. That's what I see. That's what excites me about the field.
Right.
I want to see people happy, healthy, and prosperous. There's enough in this world for everybody to live very well, and there's no reason why they shouldn't.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's something I've found in my involvement with this community, that a lot of people have that abundance mindset of, there's plenty to go around for everyone if we were just a little more responsible with, honoring and utilizing the resources that are already here, that the earth provides.
Exactly. And the other thing is, too, you got to treat it like a business. You got to have contractual agreements for everything you do. Don't go by word of mouth and handshake. Treat it like a business. Approach it from the perspective of a business plans, business models. Do it right, and do it legally, and stay compliant with the law. It'll go far. See, when you get in trouble when you look like you're doing something illegal.
Sure.
Especially with cannabis, and it can make it more difficult. Just stay compliant with the law and keep your head in a business mode. You'll do very, very well, and you'll help a lot of people. That's really the bottom line. So many people will be helped with cannabis.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts or parting words for our audience?
For our audience, maybe for you. You didn't tell me what I'm supposed to look at, but anyway, that's okay. No, I think I said everything I need to say.
Awesome.
Really, it's a wide open field. Use your imagination as to how you can fit in. Everybody can't